Hi and welcome. This is Homebody Rundown and I'm HR. This is week 3 of a 1-month pantry challenge. I wanted to focus on using the food that I have in the house and not buying as many convenience items and fresh items. We have a lot of food in the freezers, the pantry, and the refrigerators, and a lot of it I need to take the time to make things that use those ingredients. We eat a mostly pescatarian or vegetarian diet, and my 2 oldest kids are off at college this week, so I am only cooking for myself, my husband, and youngest child who is still at home, and she does also eat chicken. I will be showing you some of the meals that I make and things that I bake this week. This is not everything that we eat. I'm not a health professional. I'm not saying that these meals are nutritious or meet all nutritional needs, and you're not seeing everything that we eat. I also do not usually follow recipes. So this is not a recipe channel. If there's something that I am inspired by or I'm kind of looking at for guidance, or on occasion I do follow a recipe, especially for baked goods, I will share that in the description. But maybe there'll be some ideas or inspiration in here, especially to help you use up things that are already in your house. This is a few items that I picked up at Walmart over the weekend. The broccoli I used last week in week 2, so I'm not counting that for this week. But the apples, carrots, and sour cream I am using this week, and I will put the total in the description. Starting off strong with leftovers. Last week I made a creamy pasta bake, and so we had some left, and I am making a soup out of it. And the original recipe that inspired it was a lasagna soup. I added in broth, the pasta bake, and some leftover veggie sausage, hot Italian veggie sausage. This was really good. I mean, it has plenty of cheese in it and salt, so it was really delicious. Honestly, though, I would prefer it with just the beans. The pasta bake had white beans. You can see it here. I would love this as a soup with just the white beans and no pasta. Making a quick bean and rice bowl. This is avocado oil. I'm adding in frozen corn. I really like to pan fry corn. I think it just lets you add a lot of flavor into it. This is brown rice that I defrosted from the freezer and black beans that I defrosted from the freezer. Both of these items I make in the Instant Pot, and I usually try to make extra so I can put some away for another meal. Adding a little lime juice. A lot of seasonings are going into this. I think it's mostly smoked paprika, chipotle powder, adobo powder, salt, black pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. Had guacamole from Sam's Club in the freezer, so I defrosted that. This stuff freezes so well, and it's so convenient to just have guacamole when you want it. Now, I had a bunch of green onions to use up, so I just threw them in here. I didn't have any more regular onions left, so I'm grateful that I had some onions. It was a little too much. It was a little too heavy on the green onions, in my opinion, but here's how it turned out. Added the guacamole and sour cream to mine. These sweet potatoes I picked up at Sam's Club, I don't know how long ago, at least a couple weeks, and they were getting a little old and needed to be cooked. I do not have a cool place to store things like this, so I try to keep an eye on them because they will go bad fairly quickly. I scrub these really well before I add them into the crock pot. I add a little water, but you need to follow the instructions for whatever slow cooker you have. Cooking lentils right now, adding in vegetarian broth or bouillon cubes. This is half of a no chicken and then half of a garden veggie, which is a lower sodium. Into the Instant Pot, I'm going to make a risotto. I have frozen diced onions, luckily, since I don't have any more regular onions or fresh onions, and butter. This is on the saute function on my Instant Pot. I do have a recipe that I look at for this, so I know, the amounts of rice and water, but it is in a cookbook and it's not available online. I will link the cookbook. but I'm sure there's a lot of Instant Pot risotto recipes out there. Adding in oil because I do not use all of the butter that the recipe calls for. I just replace that with some oil. Turning off the saute function, adding in bouillon to make a broth and water. And then I like to make sure that I get all of the little bits of rice off the sides so they're in the liquid to cook. And this does not take a really long time. I think it's about 8 minutes, at least with the arborio rice that I'm using. Into this cast iron frying pan, I have oil, more of those frozen onions, mushroom umami seasoning. This one's from Trader Joe's. I also get one from Whole Foods. I find it adds a lot of flavor. Garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper. And these are the lentils that are drained that I cooked earlier, and those were cooked in broth, so they have sodium as well. Here's how the risotto looks. It cooks so well in the Instant Pot. I do a lot of variations. This one is Parmesan cheese and frozen green peas. I pretty much always end up adding more water just so it's not too thick. I have done one with butternut squash that's really good, and sage. That's another variation I really like. But the star of this plate was the lentils. The lentils with the onions and the fresh tomato. I don't know, the seasonings were just right. Those things were delicious. And usually the risotto is probably my favorite thing when I make a dinner with risotto, but it was by far the lentils on this plate. Also had the finished sweet potatoes in the back there. Now I am going to make a cookie, and I'm going to tell you right now, this is a chocolate crinkle cookie. I did not follow the recipe, and I do not recommend this. They did not turn out as well. I'm just going to tell you. I mean, they tasted fine, and they baked okay, but if you follow the exact recipe, which is online, I will link it in the description, so much better. First thing I did was I used semi-sweet chocolate instead of unsweetened chocolate, and that's all I had, and I wanted to use it up. I was thinking I had the right one, and I didn't. Also, because it was semi-sweetened, I decided to add a little less sugar. And I think the combination of those two things was my primary problem on these. Also, it does say to add the eggs one at a time, and I completely forgot until I got to the last egg. But I don't know that that's really what the issue was. You see here, I paused. I'm like, oh yeah, one at a time, right. Then the dry ingredients, using my KitchenAid mixer. This is a very sticky dough, you can see here. Very sticky. I'm trying to think of, there's another cookie I made this summer that was also like this, just a very sticky kind of dough. Anyway, you got to try to get this out of this bowl, or I mean, you could just leave it in this bowl, but it has to go into the refrigerator for, I think, at least a couple, maybe 3 hours. Now I'm going to, first I was just going to dip them, like one side into the powdered sugar, but I ended up rolling the whole thing in the powdered sugar. And you can tell here I did not use as much powdered sugar as the recipe calls for because these are just for my family. If I was making them to take somewhere, I would add more. You get more of that crinkle effect, and it's more visible. And these things were sticky. I really had trouble getting them off of the cooling rack. I guess I should have just moved, and I've done this with some cookies where I just take the parchment paper and set it on the cooling rack. But yeah, they were very soft. They tasted good. I mean, you could tell there was less sugar, and just because I added a less sugar in because of that sweetened chocolate. They were very soft, and they were still soft a couple days later, but some of them, they were kind of hollow underneath, and I don't know what that's about. For dinner tonight, I'm going to make kind of a shepherd's pie kind of thing. I'm not making it like usual. Typically, I will use a vegetarian hamburger product to replace the beef in a shepherd's pie, and I will use fresh potatoes to make mashed potatoes, but I did not have fresh potatoes, so I'm using instant potatoes. And instead of vegetarian meat products, I am using the rest of those lentils I cooked the day before and a bag of frozen mushrooms. They're sliced mushrooms. I don't believe they have anything added to them. These are just plain sliced mushrooms. Seasonings include ground mustard. That was new. I have not done that before, but it seemed to work pretty well. Thyme. I have dried thyme. Garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, roasted garlic powder, umami seasoning, and a bouillon cube that is a faux chicken flavor, and Worcestershire sauce. Adding in the lentils and green beans. I had more green beans. This is 1 can, and I had leftovers in the refrigerator that I was also going to add, and when I went to drain the water, I dropped them in the sink. I should have gone and gotten another can. This was kind of thin. It didn't have enough filling, I would say. The instant potatoes had heavy cream, unsalted butter, parsley, nutritional yeast, black pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and salt. They were a little gummy, I'm not gonna lie. That's why I always have instant potatoes. I need to get used up because I just don't really like them. Anyway, got that in the oven, and youngest child will not eat that casserole, so made quesadillas for her, and I did have to shred some cheese for that. Here's how it looked coming out of the oven. You can see here, it was a lot of sauce for not a lot of filling. I did have it bake in the oven for a while, and then I also turned on the broiler. But I mean, it's holding together okay. It's not too liquidy, I guess you could say. And when this cools down, it is going to set up significantly. And it did have excellent flavor, and the mashed potatoes had a lot of good flavor. I was surprised. I think adding in all those seasonings really made a difference. And I think I forgot to show it, but I do add in Parmesan cheese as well. Okay, I apologize. This is a crazy amount of ingredients, and I had to kind of psych myself up for it, which is usually the case. I'm going to make a lasagna, and it tends to just be whatever I can find lasagna, and that's what this is. I had red lentils that are cooked. They were in the freezer. I defrosted those. I have frozen mushrooms, a few left over from the shepherd's pie. I have more of those diced frozen onions, so I'm getting those into this pan with oil and frozen spinach. Adding in bouillon and seasonings. I will taste this as I go, as with pretty much everything I make, to see if I need more, essentially more salt. Sometimes I need other things, but I tend to undersalt because I can always add more later. I had sun-dried tomatoes that I had chopped up in the food processor last week. Got those in there. Diced roasted red pepper, added in the lentils. I did add in more seasoning after I tasted it. Here is how that filling is looking, and I'm going to let this cook down for a while just to get rid of some more of that moisture. A lot of moisture comes out of those frozen vegetables. Into a separate pan, I have pre-cooked Italian veggie sausage, vegan sausage, I believe, and it was a hot Italian flavor. It's a Beyond Meat product. There is quite a bit of olive oil in here. I do like to go a little heavy on the olive oil when I make a tomato sauce, and more of those diced onions. Adding a jar of crushed tomatoes, part of a jar of tomato sauce. I gave it a taste. It did need a little more seasoning, like the Italian seasoning, the roasted garlic, and I added just a small amount of sugar to sweeten it up a bit. For a cheesy layer, I have Parmesan cheese in with cottage cheese, and this is shredded mozzarella. Adding garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, a little salt, and a couple eggs. Mixing that up really well as I can. And, I don't measure any of this, so sometimes I make way too much, and sometimes I don't have enough filling. I just have to play it by ear. layering this in with a no-bake lasagna noodle. I get these at Whole Foods. They bake really well for me in whatever I'm making. Layered in sauce. So on the bottom, I didn't think I was going to have enough sauce, so I put in a little of the tomato sauce I made, and then I added in more of the jarred, just plain tomato sauce to put a layer on the bottom before I added in the noodles. Layering in that cooked vegetable layer, the sauce, and the cheesy layer. I only did 2 layers of the pasta noodles. I don't like to have it real heavy on the pasta. It's just a personal preference. And honestly, I don't know if I even had enough toppings to make that work very well. I am putting foil over this for most of the baking time, and then I'll take it off and add cheese right towards the end, put it back in for about 10 minutes. I was testing it with a knife to make sure that those noodles were soft, and they were. Unfortunately, I filled this a little too high and I did not put a cookie sheet under it, so it did boil over a little bit in the oven, which made a mess. I think ever since we went vegetarian, or mostly vegetarian, I don't think I've ever made a really pretty layered lasagna ever since, because I just add in whatever I have, like the lentils and the spinach. But it is kind of nice to have the flavors layered like this and not just all mixed together in like a one pot casserole dish. And the cheesy layer is really good in here. A quick and easy meal are cheese pizzas that I make with naan breads. I have bought the full size, and now my Costco tends to have these mini naan breads. They are smaller, and honestly, I think it's a really good size for these mini pizzas. I have pizza sauce, garlic salt, Parmesan cheese, nutritional yeast, and mozzarella cheese. I was thinking I had enough mozzarella to make 4. This is all I have, though. It worked. It was enough. I mean, I probably would have added a little more on each one if I had it. Sprinkling over, the Parmesan and the garlic salt and the nutritional yeast, and we'll get those in the oven. It does not take very long, and when I'm only making like 2 of these, I will put them just in the toaster oven, and that works really well. They got a little done, but they were still good. I'm going to make a peach and cherry crisp. This is molasses. I'm going to add a little of that because the brown sugar I have is a light brown sugar, and I want a little more of a deeper taste or flavor to that. Using butter and avocado oil, nutmeg, cinnamon, salt, oatmeal, and flour. These are frozen sweet cherries. I am going to put them in the microwave for a minute to get them to defrost enough that I can check each one for a pit, so I don't have to worry about a pit being in there. These are roasted pecans that I chopped up. I use them in my oatmeal, but I thought that would be a nice addition to the topping. Normally I cut in the butter by hand, but I thought I would try the food processor this time. And I think the idea is fairly good. I mean, I should not have put the oatmeal in there. I think next time I'll just try the butter with the brown sugar and see how that goes, and then add in the oatmeal for just a couple pulses, because I had to stop and break up some of the last few big pieces by hand because the oatmeal was getting too finely ground. But to that mixture, I added in the flour, the seasonings, and the molasses. Stirring it up the best I can, trying to work in that molasses, adding in the pecans, and I added in more oil. I just wanted to make sure there was enough fat in here that it didn't get too dry on the top. I am using kind of a medium-sized rectangular baking dish. I like to use the ones that I have that have lids. Just makes everything easier. These are jarred peaches from Costco, and I am chopping them up a little bit. I did drain out part of the liquid before I added them in here. Check the cherries for pits, and I don't think there were any. Here's the topping, and I had made a little too much topping, but it is really good, so I did not mind too much, but I was worried there wouldn't be enough liquid or it would absorb all of it and it would be a little dry, so I added a bit back in. And then just showing out of the freezer, youngest child doesn't like the cobbler, so I had frozen cupcakes that I'll defrost. Got the crisp in the oven, and now I'm making a potato soup. Grabbed out mustard seed, which I don't, or ground mustard. I don't usually add that, but I've been trying to use it up, so I'm going to try some in here. Vegetarian broth powder. I have roasted garlic, bouillon, red pepper flakes. Frozen items are vegetarian or vegan sausage, about half a bag of chopped kale, onions, and diced potatoes. Into this pan with oil, I have just 2 of those sausage patties. And, you know, if you eat meat, you could add sausage or whatever kind of meat you prefer. I add that mostly for my husband. Oh, I also had some carrots, so I added those in. They were chopped in the food processor. And letting this stuff cook for a minute, adding in butter. We'll let that melt and then adding in flour as a thickener. But anyway, I add the vegetarian sausage mostly for my husband. He eats a mostly vegetarian diet for just health reasons, but he's not truly a vegetarian at heart, so he kind of misses meat flavors and things, so I like to add those to meals. And then to add a little more iron, I am adding in red lentils. And you can see here, this strainer, it's so annoying. Around the edge, things get caught. So that was a piece of rice that apparently was caught in there from last time. The crisp is done baking. Got that out of the oven. This is what it looked like. It had plenty of liquid. It really came up and through the topping, but that's okay. I mean, I've had this happen before. It'll taste just fine. It just is not going to have as much crispy parts on the top. Back to the soup, I tasted it, it needed more seasonings, and I added in bouillon as well. Just a half of a bouillon cube, a little more milk, a little more water, and the milk I had mixed up from a whole milk powder. This simmered for quite a while before I added in Parmesan and nutritional yeast. Here is how it looked. And it was really good. I mean, this was very good. I have made better, and that's usually, it's probably because I added something like sharp cheddar cheese directly into the soup and let that melt through, and it does make a difference. But this is a little better for us without that much cheese, or I don't add any cream cheese. I know a lot of people do that as well. So it was very good, very flavorful. For the crisp, I wanted to make whipped cream. This is heavy cream, powdered sugar, and vanilla extract. Now, I do keep this in the refrigerator, and after, a day, it starts to separate back out. You'll notice more liquid in the bottom. But this is how it looks right now when you first make it. And it's just amazing. It's so much better than the store-bought stuff. If you have the ingredients and the time, it's worth it. Here is the crisp. This was really good. I mean, I think it had more sugar than when I just used like fresh fruit because the peaches were in a syrup, but I don't know. It was just very, very delicious. And the whipped cream was a really good addition as well. Ice cream, vanilla ice cream is always excellent with a crisp too, especially when it's still warm. Overall, made some really good things this week. We really enjoyed the lentils with the tomatoes and onions. That was awesome. I really liked the leftover soup. The shepherd's pie was a surprise. It did not look great, but it had very good flavor. It just needed more green beans. And the crisp, oh my goodness, that was awesome. And I think I will make another one of those when the kids are home on school break. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will have week 4 out next week.